Hi, my name is Harris. I'm one of your podcast hosts. I'm also a lawyer at Treadstone Law. For most Canadians, buying, selling, or refinancing real estate, a lawyer is the last thing on their mind. That's unfortunate because lawyers play a vital role in the process. But what choices do Canadians have? Lawyers can be very expensive. Well, Treadstone Law offers resources to Canadians so they have access to the information they need. Whether you sign up for a live workshop or a mailing list, we cover topics to help you make informed decisions and avoid costly mistakes. It's advice you can start using today, and best of all, it's free. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click the link below to get access right now. If you're looking to retain Treadstone Law, it's never been easier. Our entire process is online. From completing the retainer agreement to your signing appointment, everything is done from the comfort of your own home. We're your digital lawyers. The best part of it is that you don't pay anything when you're retaining our firm. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click on the link below to retain us right now. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to another episode of Hustle and Grit. Today on the podcast, I have the wonderful Andre Dawkins. Andre is a mortgage broker and principal owner at the CA Mortgage Group Mortgage Alliance. With extensive experience in the mortgage industry, Andre believes that the one thing people always remember is how someone makes them feel. For that reason, Andre works tirelessly and effortlessly to ensure that his clients have a successful experience with him. Welcome to the podcast, Andre.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And
It's always a pleasure having you on, and it's a pleasure talking to you. I know you've got a wonderful team. But before we kind of jump into the CA Mortgage Group team, I want to get a better understanding of yourself. At least, well, I have a good understanding. I know you're an awesome broker, but I want my listeners to get a better understanding in terms of how you got into the industry. Was mortgage brokering something that you always wanted to do growing up, or was it something that you pivoted into later in life? What was kind of your trajectory into mortgage brokering?
that's a great question. Growing up, I always saw myself as someone that would have abundance and be able to create and do things and not live within a box, right? So, did I always, from a youngster, say and dream up that I was going to be a mortgage broker? Absolutely not. I don't think much mortgage professionals live that life unless it's like a legacy play where, and parent or somebody that was in it before. I believe mortgages kinds of falls in your lap if it connects to your core values and who you are and things that you relate to. So myself, finances and real estate go hand in hand. As a youngster, I knew that I didn't want to have boundaries on how much income I earn. So I figured out that, I have to be in a commission based environment. As growing up, I was in sales and I used to work at Future Shop and several other places, cell phone world. And so I was already in tune to the commission space mind frame. And I thought initially that I was going to become a realtor. And then I looked at it and the workload in terms of getting that done, and also thinking of the task of bringing and driving people around. And then later on, them not moving forward would kind of be daunting. So I figured, hey, you know what? The money in the real estate is something that is never ending. And I can utilize my math skills and go after this. So be it. So do it.
Yeah. But you said something when you first kind of answered. You said that you had an abundance mindset,
Yeah.
and that kind of obviously is your core values, and your that kind of was part of the, I guess, impetus to drive you towards the career. What do you mean by abundance mindset, and was that something that like was taught to you by your parents, family? How did you get that, and how does that connect with mortgage brokering?
Yeah, the abundance mindset, just I guess from birth, right? Just knowing that I'm here for a purpose and that I have to create things that, are long lasting legacy wise. So that was instilled within me. And you might say, how did that happen? And that's simply because I had a sister that passed away prior to myself entering the world. So I felt that, with her passing, it made my parents instilled to have another child. And here I am. So being that, I'm here and I have her up there making things happen for me, I feel that, I'm here to do some greatness, right? So that was always a part of me.
So you're purpose driven. So then how did that, I mean, that's very deep and meaningful. How did that kind of connect you into the mortgage world, and how did you kind of find some kind of relation? I'm not going to say, obviously they're not the same, nowhere near the same, but how do you find some kind of connection between that and just the mortgage broking world? Man, this conversation got real quickly. But yeah, how's the connection?
Well, ultimately, as I said previously, that I was in a lot of sales positions and I got into the insurance world and I was an insurance agent and I used to be on the phone selling home and auto insurance. And while doing that, I then pursued, as I said earlier, the real estate venture, but then I went into the mortgages side of things at that point when I made that decision. So I had the license and I was working on it. And, at the end of the day, I had a full time job and other passion projects. So at the end of the day, did I put all my efforts into it? Not really. But in the back of my mind, I knew that, I want to help people because it's challenging when it comes to finances and not knowing what your options are, right? And seeing firsthand my parents go through some experiences of decisions made and wondering, what made them do this, what made them do that. I made it a point of duty that I had to learn this craft and understand how it works because obviously you read and understand that most of the wealth is created through real estate, so you definitely want to be a part of that. When I say you, I'm talking about me. So that is what happened there. And
Yeah.
in the day the transition came about, when I made it mandatory that I put all my eggs into this basket and work at it to get better at my craft and become, who I am today, which is starting the brand Call Andre. If the bank says no way, you better call Andre. Even if the bank says yes way, still call Andre is what I evolved into later. But the latter came as, again, my compass being wanting to help people and wanting to position them in the best case scenario. The brokerage that I was with initially, um, Expert Mortgage, I was more focused on private mortgages. That was the criteria that we were, instilled to create based on the demand that, people need expert advice when it comes to private lending solutions. So I took it upon myself to want to evolve and actually become an expert in credit and be able to transition someone from a private mortgage to an institutional mortgage. So, that drive was internal and it allowed me to reap the benefits of becoming well rounded in this mortgage universe.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I don't think. I mean, I'm not going to say. I don't want to make statements. Actually, I was going to say that not all brokers move from private to, or have a plan of moving from private to conventional. But I can say, I would say safely that to be able to understand both spaces, I would argue you need a lot of expertise and a lot of kind of understanding of the industry. It's not just a simple job. I know private mortgages come in all shapes and sizes, and conventional mortgages come in all shapes and sizes. Um, so my question then is, and before I actually move into the question, for all those who are listening, I know Call Andre just gave his slogan, or Andre gave his slogan of Call Andre. Depending on where you're listening from, you can always reach out to Andre. I have his contact information on the below or on the side, wherever you're listening from. Reach out to him. But what is it then? Can you kind of give us a process of what it's like working with you and your team. If somebody does need to kind of get a mortgage, whether it's private, whether it is conventional, do they just give you a call, email you? What's kind of the process? Can you kind of run our listeners down to what it's like working with your team?
Absolutely. So working with our team is, a personal approach where we customize things to your liking. So if you're a phone person or an email person, whatever the case may be, we're going to adjust accordingly. But ultimately, when it comes down to the nitty gritty of it, in order for us to be able to assist you well, we need tools to do so. So I reference it as, like a doctor or like a mechanic, where if you go to these people for a checkup or a vehicle diagnostic, they have to run tests and get under the hood or examine things. So what I like to tell clients is, listen, we need your documents. Like, we could talk and have these conversations, whether it be Zoom or in person or on the phone, but ultimately, that's just a conversation. It doesn't really mean that anything is tangible. So I like to educate people to understand that, yes, the conversation matters, but don't get too caught up on the conversation, because you're going to hit a failsafe. And in order to win in this industry, especially as you alluded to, things have changed completely from what it was before to what it is now. We need documents up front. So we look at your situation and then customize a solution that is based on your individual parameters, not external. What happens right now in this industry is too many people are looking outside within and not within from outside, meaning they're externalizing. They're hearing all this jazz talking about rates. They're hearing,
Yeah.
oh, so got this. Somebody did this. Somebody did that. They did this. Whatever the case may be, but you don't know what their individual circumstances are. So my advice to you is, forget about the noise. Talk to a professional who cares about you, and then let's get your documents and let's review it, and then let's have a conversation on what your options are, or how you can prepare yourself for something better in the future. And again, don't get caught up in interest rates. Get caught up in solutions that help you from where you are right now to where you want to go, right? Like, there was times from past where I was saying that, rates are going to go up, and, we're getting away with a free ride here. It's not going to last forever. Like, if you go back and reference my videos on social media, I was saying that years ago before it occurred, right? But ultimately, again, going back to that statement, there's mixed emotions, mixed signals from external forces, where people think, that they're immune to what is happening, but it's just a matter of time before it catches up to you. So knowing that that's coming, you need to prepare yourself and get ahead of it so you can plan accordingly and figure out what is going to work for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got a question for you, and I agree with, for what it's worth, I agree with everything you're saying. And being a real estate lawyer on the tail end of this, I still don't understand mortgages. There's a million different things going on, and it's always important to go to a professional and trust that professional. So you got to trust them with what they're doing. You don't go to a doctor and you start kind of questioning what they're doing, or to a mechanic and they're like, you know what, I think you need to change this belt this way. No, you let them take care of it. But and I 100% agree with you where rates aren't everything, but that's what everybody's kind of caught up. Now, the pushback when a lot of people hear what you're saying, that rates aren't everything, is, hey, he's just trying to get me a higher rate for no reason, right? He's just trying to get one by me, right? Because that is kind of the instinctive rebuttal. So I want to get ahead of that rebuttal. What would your response be to all those listeners thinking, hey, you know what, like, this guy is just, yeah, again, trying to get one by me. I want the lowest rate. Why is he talking about getting whatever rate?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I see where that conflict comes. And again, it goes based on, as you just said yourself, that nobody really knows everything what goes on in a mortgage, or what, the ways to beat a mortgage are, per se, right? And just look at this rate and say, oh my gosh, I'm going to pay less interest. Yeah, okay, that's cool, but there's still ways that you could have a higher interest rate and still pay less interest, right? If you apply it. How again, yes, you need more money to pay against the principal, but then you're saying if the rate is high, how am I going to come up with that money, right? But ultimately, the thing is this: you could do things to get a higher rate, and at the end of the day, you're jeopardizing your livelihood and your situation where something could fall through the cracks and it's a problem. Or you can go about it the right way and get where you fit in and be okay knowing that, you know what, yes, I might have to buckle down on my budget and, figure out how I'm going to make ends meet. But at least I know that if I was approved for this mortgage, then I qualify for this mortgage and I can stand the test of time with this mortgage. And yes, sometimes people have to make hard decisions with, you know, it might be time to exit the situation you're in order to open doors for better pastures down the road, right? But to answer that question direct, it's just, hey, listen, at the end of the day, would you rather get where you fit in, or would you rather be on eggshells wondering if you're going to close or not?
Yeah. No, and I have a wonderful analogy, and it fits in exactly to what you're saying. I feel like, um, and I usually use this analogy as a kind of comparison between why individuals should be using a broker as opposed to a bank. But I think it fits here as well, where with banks, as well as just trying to find the lowest rate. It's kind of like you are going to a bank. Banks don't have a lot of different products. They can only sell you what they have. And so if your shoe size is an 11 or 12 or whatever, and they don't have that, they're just going to size you up to a 13 and off you go. Whereas if you want to have proper shoes and the proper size, you have to make, I say always go to a broker, because you guys have you have a wealth of information. You have a wealth of products. And over time, when the biggest thing for me is when my mortgage renews, if and I love banks, I don't have anything against banks, but if a mortgage specialist is good at what they do, they're no longer going to be there in 5 years. Whereas if they if it's questionable, they'll be there in 5 years. With mortgage brokers, if they really know what they're doing, is when they're going to be there 5 years, and if they don't know, they're going to be gone. So it's the opposite, and you build a lifelong relationship with a mortgage broker. It's not just about your house. It could be a primary mortgage. Then you need a secondary mortgage to either buy an investment property, something else, and everything fits in differently. So you don't have to stick to the same lender saying, hey, I have to be with my first mortgage here, and these guys pulled me back for whatever else. That's why when you're with a broker, they could say, hey, what you're saying exactly right now, like what you do is go through all of their numbers, figure out what they require, and give it to them. I mean, again, I don't know a lot about mortgages, but I do understand one thing. Like, a dollar is not a dollar. I know everybody thinks that if they're making $100,000, $50,000, whatever it is, it's the same. No, it's not. And I see this from the outside, right? And maybe you could touch on it a little bit more. But how that money comes in and how you earn it depends on how much the bank is willing to fund you and what the rates are for that income that you're earning. Would that be a correct statement or incorrect statement? What do you think about that? Do you have any comments on that?
Before I touch on that, just to double down on what you said previously, again, too, a lot of people are not aware that going to a broker doesn't necessarily have to cost you anything, right? Meaning, if you qualify for an A lender deal and I arrange it for you with an A lender partner such as TD, Scotiabank, Manulife Bank, etc., there is no lender fee, there is no broker fee. So you're at no disadvantage to go to the bank thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to pay this broker. In terms of, yeah, I'm going to go to the bank directly, right? So just so that people are aware, like if you qualify for a bank and a broker arranges the mortgage, then there is no fee, right? So now to answer the second part of your question, which is, sorry, let me turn off my ringer there. Apologies.
All good.
Sorry, just double down on that question. Just repeat it for me there so I can. what you had said previously?
Yeah. So I was talking about, what was I talking about? um, talking about rates. We're talking about,
Sorry, I'm just turning down my ring on both phones. All right. So you were saying the rates, and then
not basically. So the question was, firstly, and I'm just repeating it. We're going to cut all of this out, but firstly, it was the comment on brokers building a relationship, and you were going to talk about that it doesn't cost you anything, and then we're going to pivot into a dollar is not a dollar, and
yes.
everybody thinks it's the same, but it's not. So, and it kind of, I was trying to push into more what you were talking about earlier, where you need the documents because everybody thinks you can have a conversation. I earn this much, and so just take it away.
Absolutely, yes. So, as you were saying, a dollar is not a dollar when it comes to mortgages, right? Misconception is, especially for business, for self individuals, like self-employed people that earn, high gross income, but when you look at their tax returns, there's a small net income, right? And banks on the A side, all lenders for that matter, only look at your net income when it comes to qualifying for a mortgage. So you could be a high income earner, but at the end of the day, you write it all off, or you earn your income in corporations and it's not earned on your personal side. And that's what they're looking at when it comes to residential mortgages, what's on your personal side. So this is where, coming to a broker, there is other lenders that we have access to that can do deals based on your bank statements, which are called like a B lender. And that would then entail not needing to know anything about your tax returns per se, but strictly looking at your bank statements and being able to conclude what is a stated income that we can use based on what expenses are flowing through your bank account and what income is being deposited, right? So it becomes a little bit tricky to navigate, but someone experienced can get through it. And then on you on the other end being, the consumer, the client, the customer, at the end of the day, yes, you might say, oh my gosh, a B lender now, the rate is about 1% higher, and
Yeah.
there are fees to arrange this mortgage, like a 1% lender fee, and there might be a 1% broker fee. And that's again because the compensation that the bank would pay on an A lender is going to be reduced. And as well, the time and effort that it takes to put behind the scenes to put together the deal is why the broker needs the additional compensation. But now, yeah, your interest rate might be 1% higher, and yes, that means your payment is a bit higher, but how did you benefit as the consumer? A, you didn't pay a higher tax return, so you saved money in your pocket on your income taxes. So the money you're saving on your income taxes, even if your monthly mortgage payment is a bit higher, you're still ahead of the game. But yet there's this misconception that people have saying, I don't want a B lender deal, right? And it's just
Mm.
being uneducated to what makes sense from what doesn't.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think a lot of people are just like, well, this is not like the bank that I see around the corner, and therefore there's like just a cognitive like block there. Whereas 100%, like if either you can speak to, and this is to all my listeners, if you are self-employed, either you can speak to Andre and get like a B lender mortgage and figure out a little bit higher of an interest rate, but you get into that house right away. Buy that house. I think also like right now is a good time to buy because there's tons of stock available and everybody's ready to negotiate. But at the same time, like here's the thing though, like for all of those self-employed, like Andre just said, you're basically you're going to have to declare a higher income, and then you're going to have to report it for some time before you even qualify for the mortgage. 2 years. There you go. So you're paying all these taxes, hopefully and hoping that you're going to get qualified after 2 years. Whereas like you could just jump into a mortgage. It's again, this is why I always recommend to not just use a mortgage broker, but to build a relationship with the broker. It's about you're dealing with, for most 99% of Canadians, it's the largest asset that they own, which is their home. You don't want to play around with that. And I know sometimes, especially since COVID, everybody's around their TikToks and Instagrams, and everybody's become a financial expert, whether it be a stockbroker, Bank of Canada expert, all of that, right? Because they see these clips and they're like, oh, but that's not how it works. There's so much behind it that you need to be able to speak to somebody who's constantly just in the industry. They're playing the game, right? They've got skin in the game. They're in the game. They know what the ins and outs are. They know what the rules are, because the rules are changing too.
All the
It's
time.
not, yeah, and it's not like you could just, what you thought the mortgage was 5 years ago and how you got approved is what's going to happen now. So you need to be able to understand how you're going to play the game. It's kind of like, a lot of people who are going to hit the gym and they've never been to a gym, right? And then they're like, you know what, I'm going to lift the heaviest weight. They don't have the form down. They don't have anything down. They don't know how the exercise works. You're just going to end up hurting yourself. That's it. You might make one Instagram video off of it, and then that's it. You're home, and you're nursing some kind of injury.
And at the end of the day, even to that point, the people that are self-employed, there is still options even with A lenders that if you're buying a property, there's what we call stated income programs where, yes, even though you have a high gross and a lower net, there's still ways that we can structure you to be approved with an A deal. But again, this is why we need to see your paperwork up front and make
Yeah.
sure that we check the balances and see that this is going to be viable or not, right? So I just wanted to double down there to let people know that it doesn't mean that, hey, you're self-employed, you just have to be with a B lender. And even with those that are self-employed, again, maybe your income level and tax structure allows that you still have good net income where you can qualify for A lending, refinances as well. There's certain programs under 65% loan to value where it's more favorable, as they call it, non-conforming mortgages. So the ratios don't matter as much. And then there's special programs where when you have extensive great credit report scores, then again, special loan to value equity deals with A lenders that we have access to, that we can structure a game plan for you for not only today, but for tomorrow as well. So going back to what you said about building a relationship, it's key in terms of working with someone that you trust, and then being able to not only just look at it like today is the deal and only today, but what is it in the future that you want to create as well too. And let's build a roadmap so we can get you there.
Yeah, no, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Now, I do want to change gears a little bit, and talk a little bit about what we were just talking about, interest rates. I know they're not the be all end all of everything, but they're always in the news, and I think that they've been providing a lot of hurt for a lot of people for quite some time. So since I think 2022, Bank of Canada has been bumping up interest rates. Then they paused, and now for the last two meetings, the Bank of Canada kind of brought it down 25 basis points each time, and I think we're below. We've gone down 50 basis points from the peak. My question to you is a crystal ball question. Where do you think rates are going? Is Bank of Canada going to pause? Are they going to keep going down? Like, where do you see the rates going by the end of this year?
Crystal ball, let me see. So at the end of the day, yeah, nobody has the right answer, but I get it. You posed it and said for me to, hypothesize. So at the end of the day, what does that mean? Really, the fact that they held four times, I kind of said in previous communications on social media that it's a clear indication that they're going to start dropping it, right? And so said it, so be it. So I'm 1 for 1 on the crystal ball, so I don't want to damage that right now. The point is, basically, we're in a precarious situation in terms of, world economics and things of that nature. U.S. election, our elections coming next year as well. What happens today is a result of 6 months ago. So where we are right now is showing those signs. We haven't really seen any drastic movement or change from this 0.50 drop today, because again, it takes 6 months for it to show signs. So at the end of the day, in terms of house values, they've kind of come down, but they stayed stagnant, where you would have thought that they would have dropped and plummet a lot faster, right? So
Mm.
great resilience in our market. And I think that the government doesn't want these prices to get more out of whack too at the same time. So they have to be careful with how fast they drop in terms of where things are. So my guess for the next one is going to be a hold, but again, I could be wrong because of my earlier statements of world economics and US elections and our election coming soon. So, but I would think a hold for the next one, and then maybe further it'll be another drop 0.25, and then maybe hold, and then another drop. Maybe they'll spread it out, but yes, it has to go down. It will go down. It's just a matter of time, right? So as you said earlier, the point is, again, external, get it out of your brain, which is to the consumer. I'm talking to you, and I'm saying to you, hey, listen, forget about that noise. Where do you fit right now? Are you qualified or not? Do you need to buy, or were you on the fence? Are you trying to upgrade your property, or are you trying to downsize? Because now's the time to take advantage of the opportunities. That's what matters most. Like, and this is the thing that people get caught up in. Oh my gosh, I want this interest rate, but they might be sitting with a bunch of debt and it's like drowning, and they have the equity in their property and they're saying, no, I'm going to wait for the interest rate to drop, right? I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. But at the end of the day, why not look and see if there's a solution where you can still potentially keep the rate you have now and get something in second position or something to that matter, and be able to at least alleviate the pressure, rebuild your credit, so that way you can then strike again when rates are better, right? It's about making calculated moves right now. And that's the best advice that I can give individuals, because I know there's a lot of confusion. People don't know what to do. And at the end of the day, nobody has the crystal ball, but you got to look out for you right now. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I also think that again, going back to like the whole everybody's a financial expert after COVID, especially with TikTok and whatever memes that they're watching. I think that, and to what you said, when people say they've got one rate or this rate or they did that or whatever it was, you don't know their circumstances. And I think that the circumstances that somebody has will dictate their next move. But a lot of people are on the sidelines. Actually, here's the other thing. So a lot of people were on the sidelines for the longest time thinking real estate was going to drop like 50%. We're going to get houses for 100,000 or whatever nonsense, right? That didn't happen. And so for those of you who are waiting for interest rates to go back down to 0.99% or whatever they were, they're not safe to say they're going to go down, but I don't think that they're going to go down that low again. What's your opinion on that?
I think the best rate in the future, near future, will be like mid threes, high threes for an A lending institution, which right now we're at about 4.69 on a fixed, high ratio approval right now, which is still pretty attractive for somebody buying a place, right? It's not as bad as it may seem. Yes, don't get me wrong, 1.9 is way better, but in terms of where we were to where we are right now, there's good striking power to get into a property where you're going to see an upswing as the rates go down in
Yeah.
terms of value.
Yeah, and I also think that the 1.99 was a sign of an unhealthy market, whereas the 4.69 is a sign of a healthy market. So it's never going to stay that low. Even if it dips, it's only dipping to come right back up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a wave.
Yeah, and if people are kind of saying, you know what, I'm going to get the most expensive a property I can, which is what people did at 1.99 or whatever it was, when the rates go back up, which they always will, you're kind of out of luck. What are you going to do? And a lot of people were in a situation, still maybe are, where they're just hanging on to survive. Now, to that effect, I think that my next question to you is what's the best time to reach out to you? Okay. Like, cause a lot of people are thinking about things. They're on the sidelines. They don't know whether they should refinance or shouldn't. what's the ideal time? What should people know when they are reaching out to you, if anything? What kind of information? I know that you want, like you said earlier, you want documents so that you could understand their income. But what if they're just kind of in the thinking stage where should I, shouldn't I, and they're kind of playing that game? How early on should they be reaching out to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll answer with twofold. First, just to respond to your question initially, when it comes to like a renewal situation, you want to at least have a query in maybe 6 months before the renewal date. But realistically, 4 months is when we got to be hitting the rubber, right? On the,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, that's when we got to start rolling, because that 4 month window, 120 days, at least it gives time to look at your situation in depth, get the documents, and be able to secure a mortgage for 90 days in terms of before the maturity dates. That way you don't have any surprises and you know where you sit. And then to your advantage too, if rates become lower prior to that closing date, then you're still in the driver's seat, that we can renegotiate the rate, but at least you have a complete file with that lender, kind of thing, right? So now, to that point, a lot of people have situations where they have renewals coming up, and they're waiting for their bank first to hear from their bank saying, "Listen, I'm going to wait on my bank, and then I'll let you know what happens." Right? But you got to understand, the bank isn't your best friend, and I'll say it that way. Like, yes, I work with banks, and they're my partners, so I'm not throwing them under the bus or anything. It's just a part of retention, right? It's like a cell phone bill. Like, you have a cell phone, you're with Bell, and you want to move to Rogers. Bell is going to be less enticing as the Rogers offer because you're moving as a new client, right? But the point is that if after the fact that Bell heard that Rogers has something, then Bell is going to now say, "Oh my gosh, no, 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 let's do something better." So I'm using that analogy to the same way as mortgages. But the point is, if that is the case upfront, do you know that, hey, are they looking out for your best interest or not, right? And number one, why put your eggs in one basket when a broker can have it spread amongst many, right? So at the end of the day, you have nothing to lose. You still have Bell in your back pocket. At the same time, let's see if there's something else that can be positioned better. And the thing that, people have to understand is that, yes, there's a path of least resistance where, hey, I don't want to give you all these documents. I don't want to go through the headache. I don't want to do an appraisal. I don't want all these scenarios. What if, what if, what if? But at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, does it cost you to give documents? Yes. Eventually, it might cost you to do an appraisal, but is it worth the cost if you could save money, or if you can get a better deal, or you can restructure your situation? Because at the end of the day, a renewal is a renewal, and a renewal will just renew based on that mortgage. But if you have debts on the sidelines, or you have other plans or ambitions, or maybe you've purchased a pre-construction property that's still sitting waiting, and you need to align yourself to make sure that you're going to have a smooth sail ride, then you need to get ahead of these things, right? And time is your friend, but you have to utilize it to your advantage. So my advice is, take the leap and do the work now so that later on you don't have to sweat.
Yeah, pay now or pay later. So either you're going to spend that time right now and give you the documents, or you're going to be forced to pay later on. And I guess if you're being lazy, and I think a lot of it does come down to lazy or intimidation. I know a lot of people are intimidated by this entire process. You do end up paying a lot more. And funny thing that you said that the whole Bell Rogers analogy, because that happened to our firm. We were with one company, and we're asking them for the best deal that they've got. They said, like, take it or leave it. We go to somebody else and we move over, and then the other company comes back, says, "Hey, no, no, listen. We've got," but it was already too late.
Yep.
So I always, 100% agree that you got to shop around, and you have to have the best person on your side kind of advising you to shop around and where to go. Again, to all the listeners who want to reach out to Andre, depending on where you're listening from, his contact information is either below or on the side. Definitely reach out to him. But Andre, just to wrap things off, I just want to ask you a question more on and this is more of a real estate question, I guess. Um, is it a good time to buy real estate? I know we're talking about refinances and all of that, and I want to kind of move into the real estate end, in terms of just first time home buyers, all of those guys, who are intimidated. They don't know if they've got enough money to be able to put the down payment down, or they don't know what to qualify or how they qualify. All they heard was interest rates were 2%, then they jumped to 7, 8%, or whatever it was, 10%, a million, whatever it is. And they're just kind of in shock. So, what's some advice that you could give home buyers, whether they're first time home buyers, whether they're just looking to move up, in terms of financing and next steps and how they should plan the purchase?
Um, is now a good time to buy? Yes, it's always a good time to buy, and that's a true statement. For doesn't matter what interest rates are, right? And there's always deals in the marketplace, especially right now. Eventually, you will see that there are tremendous amount of deals out there. So many for sales, the buyer's market, right? So the advice for anybody on the sideline is to get off the fence and let's get you pre-approved, let's get you pre-qualified, let's see where you stand. Like at the end of the day, there's no harm in you finding out where you are, right? Like that's the stance to take. Don't assume that you cannot, don't assume that there's not a property that you can get into. Rather be open-minded and look at your options. Maybe you combined with somebody else too and figure out and buy together. If you're paying rent here and somebody else is paying rent there, why not join forces? But the point is, have a conversation, get your documents in, and let's see where you stand. Then at least from there, you can be connected with the realtor and you can see where your budget is and what you may qualify for, and then go from there, right? Don't make assumptions, but rather get exact advice. And then at least as well, you'll have a blueprint to know what you need to do to get to where you want to go, right? There's several programs that can help with down payment assistance, different strategies that can be implemented. So at the end of the day, just find out, and then at least you're empowered with the right information so you can make educated decisions. Because I know there's a gap between this generation now saying, they don't see themselves ever owning a home and it's not obtainable and it'll never be. And, at the end of the day, what is the latter? Renting and paying rent and never having any equity or having any return on the funds that you're paying out. So to me, owning a home is always better. And at the end of the day, yes, don't get me wrong, it's not easy. It's not like a cakewalk to say, yeah, I'm a homeowner, and just because I can afford the mortgage, I'm okay. There's a lot more to it that you have to maintain the property, upkeep, things of that nature. There's other sides to the equation, but at the end of the day, ultimately, when you look back years past and you're like, all right, at least now I have this nest egg that can help me later on in life, whether I retire and take those funds out, and at least now, I have something working for me as opposed to retiring and having nothing there. So at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of mixed emotions when it comes to home ownership. And, the goal of most people is, yeah, I want to become a homeowner. But then that also leads to the breakage in when these rates eroded and now the affordability has become a challenge for some. And you look at it like, okay, what do I do now? Yes, you have to weigh the pros and the cons and make the tough decision. It might mean that it's time for you to exit at this time, right? Or it might mean that you pull some of the equity in terms of finding a way to stabilize and get through this turbulent time until rates get back better. Or it might mean you need a reverse mortgage and be able to fix your cash flow situation. It might mean you need a private mortgage where it can be prepaid and you have the ability to again fix your cash flow. The point that people should really hit home with is it's all about cash flow. It's not about interest rates, right? It's about that monthly cost and affordability, and how can you make it so that you and your family are in a place where the stress is minimal, and then the future can be bright again.
Yeah. No, perfect. Awesome. Thank you for the advice. Thank you for coming on. For all of those who are listening, again, Andre's contact information, depending on where you're listening from, is either below or on the side. Definitely reach out to him. Thank you for coming on, Andre. Any last words before we sign off?
Thank you. Just if the bank says no way, you better call Andre. And even if the bank says yes way, still call Andre. And I represent CA Mortgage Group, where the CA stands for care about, as in we care about you. We truly do. And you call us, we got your back 100%. We're making solutions, suggestions, recommendations for you, for your betterment. All right.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Take care. All the best.